The spectre of Dallas is going to hang over all of us, I dare say, for the foreseeable future. I don't want to talk about that specifically. I try to talk about ideas rather than actual events. But I did want to address one point here, which is that those acting in Dallas, those shooting police officers, those taking revenge, cannot be creating justice. Vengeance is not just, and you cannot create a just society by taking vengeance personally against those who've wronged you. Even if you do believe that we live in a white supremacist capitalist patriarchy and that's hideously unjust, you're not going to improve it by using violence or by taking revenge on those that you think have caused it. You can't, it's impossible, and let's talk about why. Revenge makes a good story, certainly. There's something that I think we can all appreciate about taking violent revenge against those that have wronged us to finally give them their comeuppance. But the truth is that that resonates with us because we know that vengeance is wrong, that because it's a fantasy. We know it's the worst part of our nature that wants that. It's nice to pretend that we are, the bad enough dude, the white hat cowboy, that we're someone who would take matters into our own hands. But we shouldn't, and we don't, and that's because we've been brought up to be civilised people who don't solve our disputes exclusively through violence. And don't misunderstand me here. Revenge is by its very nature an act of violence, even if it doesn't necessarily involve, killing or maiming people. You are using force to extract some degree of restitution from someone, and whether you're going to extort money from them or cut their hand off or lynch them or tar and feather them, all of these things, all of these are using force to compel someone else, and that is violence, philosophically speaking. Those of us who are liberals understand this implicitly, that individuals do not use force on each other like that. The monopoly of force rests with the state, and it's up to them to use that compulsion, that violence if necessary, wisely and in accordance with the will of the people. We do give the state the monopoly on justice as well. We don't have individual feuds, we don't have a law that permits us to take matters into our own hands, to be vigilantes. And normally the law cracks down pretty hard on people who tries to do that nevertheless, because, when individual citizens decide to enforce laws themselves, then, that is ipso facto a threat to the legitimacy of the state. The state has to have a monopoly on justice and the ideas of justice. Well, some might say that the justice system is horribly racist, that it's terrible, that it doesn't do what it should do, and so the only choice they have is to take matters into their own hands. They are missing the point entirely. If they think that the justice system is wrong, their approach should be to change the justice system through democratic means. In a fundamental sense, a justice system is only something that works by social consent, by people agreeing to what is right and wrong. This is how we end up with things that are technically illegal that do not get enforced. I don't know about where some of you are, but in this country I know for a fact that police just don't bother to arrest people for smoking weed anymore. That's still illegal, so surely they must do something about it. Well, no, because there isn't social consent for it, there is no social gain, there is no reason to punish these people, it does not serve the interest of justice by doing so, and so they don't. It's a waste of their time, it's a waste of everyone's lives. And as time goes on, these social pressures will exert themselves through democracy, and the legal system will change to recognise it. When we see activists anywhere in the world saying that violence is the only means that they have to try and restore some justice in the world, I think that you can see just how deluded that they have to be. It makes me wonder what they've been taught what face of the world that they think is out there to believe that they live in an anarchist state where it is legitimate for them to do that, even if they do believe that their cause is righteous. That's irrelevant to this idea of what is just. They've bought into the myth of, the lone righteous man in search of justice, which is something that permeates our culture. We see it on TV and in movies, and we see it everywhere. And why do we see that? Well, it's because it's an emotional pull to suggest that the character is right for using force, using violence against his problems. It's something that facilitates, nice long action scenes, that lets us see gunfights and, people getting blown apart, all of this. And we're asked to believe that the character's right for doing this, because he was wronged, so, well, that's alright then. By using that emotional pull, we're being asked to make the jump to say that what he's doing is just. So even if the law doesn't say it's okay for him to do it anyway, that's the same logic that the kind of people that were shooting into crowds of police at Dallas wanted to use. They wanted to make that leap, that jump of faith out to say, no, this is okay, we're right to do this, just by tugging at emotions instead of making a logical, coherent argument. It saddens me to think that the people who can make the logical, coherent argument, and let's face it, there are logical arguments to be made that might necessitate the use of force. I don't necessarily think that they are legitimate, but I can certainly see such an argument being made. But it's not the people making those arguments who are the ones shooting people. If through some chain of logic you could make yourself believe that the US is not a democratic state, for example, and I can foresee various ones of that, because the two-party structure that makes it very hard for there to be a diversity of ideas, that each party looks to the extreme wings of their own supporters. They don't try and compromise, they don't try and pass good laws most of the time. I can understand there being an argument, not a good argument, but an argument that might have some sway, some sophistic appeal to some people, to say that the US is in fact a dictatorship, and that thus the only possible way to change things is to have a revolution. That's something that Marxists like to say a lot. They want to change things right this second. They don't want to use the democratic process, they don't want to be voted into power, they want to seize power and use power for their own ends. Anyway, that's beside the point. The problem that I see is that the philosophers out in the Black Power movement, out in the extreme left, these are not the people that are making the move to the use of violence. These are not the people who have, in so many words, the courage of their convictions. They aren't, trying to themselves participate in a race war. They're just telling other people to believe them that a race war is necessitated by this situation, and then leaving them to go on their merry way. And this leads to people like those shooting in Dallas, who are stooges. They are nothing but useful idiots. They don't understand how this school of thought of attacking police officers might be philosophically justified, why this might somehow be something that might be a good thing. All they know is that they feel wronged by society, by white people, by the police particularly, and they want to take revenge for that. These people have made the emotional jump. They've turned their brains off for 2 seconds, just long enough to make that jump that says use of force by me is legitimate against those, even those who haven't harmed me, just against those who wear the same uniform as those who have harmed people who have the same skin colour as me. This is not justice. This could not be justice, and this could not ever achieve justice. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth by necessity leads to a world of toothless, blind men. And while perhaps some of those on the extreme left might argue that this is at least an equitable state of affairs, those of us with some sense and some sanity might argue that a better place for a world is a world where we all have eyes and teeth, and we allow the state to decide what's right and wrong. I'm not a huge big statist, I'm a pretty strong libertarian, but I think that it is necessary to allow the state to administer the justice system. Not because they necessarily do it well, I think at times they do it very badly, but someone has to, and the only people that could conceivably deliver justice in a dispassionate way, in a way that can be applied equally to all citizens, is a state of some description. You can't put a financial incentive to achieve justice. That's going to work out even worse. So it needs to be left up to the state. It needs to be left up to individual cases, into judges and to people that have earned the right to be seen as impartial. And even then, we don't allow judges to make decisions, we allow juries to make decisions. We include the whole of the franchise in the process. We include legislators who make laws, judges who interpret laws, and a jury to decide who's guilty and who's not. And somehow out of the back of all of this, we try to get something reasonably close to justice, and the closest to justice that we can realistically hope to get. I have some problems with some laws, and there's certainly plenty of them that I'd like to change, but that process, that legal system, is not something that I think should change, and it never could. I'm a very strong supporter of due process, and I think that anyone who's not, even in small ways, is someone who you should not listen to. They're someone who's, dangerous, frankly, because they're saying that, actually, no, we're not going to follow these laws, we want our own laws. And yet those out there on the far left, it's perhaps a bit of a misnomer now to still call them the aggressive left. I think I'm going to start calling them the aggressive left, since they started killing people. Throughout all of their rhetoric, they seem to think that vengeance is a pretty good idea. They like this idea of sort of capricious, out of nowhere, it's up to me how offended I am, how bad an offence you've committed. Even if you've committed an offence at all, it's up to me to decide how wrong you are and hold you accountable for it. This is entrenched in their ideology, that it's okay when we do it, but I can stand in judgment over you. The reason that we don't allow vengeance is because we just cannot trust those personally wronged to be fair and just in the outlying of a punishment. We simply can't. To hand a grieving parent a gun and put him in a room with a person who killed their child, do you think that justice can come out from there? That's why the justice system is fundamentally an exercise in pragmatism. It's almost impossible to reset the world to how it should have been before that injustice was perpetrated. There's nothing anyone can do to bring that person back. All there is what's left, and what's left is to punish the person as much as society deems they need to be punished, and that's all there is. It's not supposed to make the victim feel better. It's not supposed to bring them back. It's not supposed to fix things. It's simply supposed to be what we can do. And yeah, of course, that's a pretty depressing message, but that's all that a justice system can be. We punish as much as we feel is appropriate in the abstract. An abstract, by the way, that for the most part people aren't thinking about. People don't know what it's like to spend a day in jail, or 6 months in jail, or a year in jail. But in the abstract, we sit down and we say that this murder is worth 12 years, and this one is worth 25, and this one is worth life, based off of how dangerous this person will be in the future, on the exact circumstances, on dozens of other factors. And we say it's not good, but it's what there is, and this person must be punished. But we're not gonna allow vengeance, because vengeance will never stop. My vengeance against someone who's wronged me will lead to his family having vengeance upon me, and on and on and on. Revenge multiplies victims, it multiplies pain, and it multiplies grief, whereas the justice system, at the very least, tries to ensure that the only grief that there is that already exists. This is how you can tell that the shooters in Dallas were doing the wrong thing, that they couldn't possibly have been creating any form of justice from their actions to redress the 2 dead African American men in other states. They have left 5 widows and 5 grieving families. That's not justice. It couldn't possibly be justice. All they've done is create a bunch of people who know that their father was killed by an angry black man. Do you think that they are going to be interested in creating a just state for those with your point of view? I'm the political animal, and let's see if we can get aggressive left trending. That would make me happy.